All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. Today is July 22nd, 2024. We got a great guest on tonight. Before we bring him in, let's get our co-host in here, Gary Kendrick. How you doing, Gary? We got another co-host. Got a third co-host.
What do you tell him? Tell him. For me and Emmy, it's time to get squatchy.
Time to get squatchy.
Yeah.
She's going to poke you.
Yeah, she's trying. All right, going in there.
Without further ado, let's bring in our guest tonight, Chester Moore. How's it going, Chester?
Man, I'm doing great. You guys have an even more audacious, epic intro than my Dark Outdoors podcast, so I salute you for that. I feel like I was going to go into battle, like I needed like a sword and armor to go out charging into the woods looking for Sasquatch, and I'm like, man, finally someone that's got some oomph in them, and I like that. That was really cool. Good stuff.
Well, that's okay. Wait till you hear the song that we made for you. Oh, yeah.
Lord.
we had artificial intelligence make you a nice hard rock song. I think you like it.
I got you. That dang AI out there, you know.
So Gary Kendrick is my researcher. He's the one he is really good at researching, and it sounds like he's been researching you for years. So I think he's got like a couple volumes or chapters of questions or something like that. So
let's do it, man.
We'll let him go at it.
Cool. Hey, Chester, how are you?
Man, I'm doing great. It's an honor and privilege to be on here with you guys tonight. Thank you.
Really appreciate you coming on. It's really nice to have you on. I just want to go over some of the things that Chester Moore is into, which is like an entire page. But Chester is the founder and writer for the Gulf Great White Sharks. He's the host and investigator of Dark Outdoors podcast, co-founder of Kingdom Zoo and Wildlife Center, editor-in-chief for the Texas Fish and Game magazine, founder and managing director of the Higher Calling Wildlife. And you have too many awards for me to try to list on here. It'll take the whole hour for me to sit down and talk about awards that you've got. You've been a journalist for outdoor magazines since you were 19 years old.
Yep.
It's really incredible. I kind of want to go back a little bit in time to a band that was called Freak 13. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Man, it's the first time I've had the opening question on Freak 13 on a Bigfoot show. I've been asked before. So back in college, a friend of mine and I founded this band, and it eventually became Freak 13. And like maybe the third song I wrote for it was called Swamp Devil. And it was a Bigfoot song. And it was based loosely on the legend of Boggy Creek. That was my impetus when I wrote the lyrics. And I was singing it from like the monster's perspective, you know. And it was just a tad bit heavier and cooler lyrics than the actual songs in the legend of Boggy Creek. And then we went on and did stuff like The Calling, which was also a Bigfoot related song. And then we did a lot of horror stuff. I'm a big horror fan. And we played the 25th anniversary celebration of Friday the 13th in Hollywood. We had a song called Crystal Lake that was, of course, based on the Friday the 13th franchise. And we had Betsy Palmer, who was Jason's mom in Friday the 13th, do her character narration in it. And we did a similar thing with my Candyman song I wrote called Believe in Me with Tony Todd, who played Candyman. Did a lot of cool stuff like that. And it's a funny story on the Crystal Lake song because live, our singer Raven, you know, she was the female vocalist in the band, did it. And she was so intense on the Rise Up Jason part that Betsy did on the narration. She scared people, you know, like literally she would scare people in the crowd on this part of the song. And one time in rehearsal, she was so intense, her nose started bleeding, you know?
Oh, wow.
I mean, so we kind of left it all out there. It was a lot of fun. It was cool. It was like a place I could talk about horror and crypto and songs and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, nice. It was really pretty cool.
Yeah.
Chester, can you tell us, have you had a personal sighting of Bigfoot, or what is your favorite Bigfoot sighting?
My favorite, the thing that really started it all for me was not a sighting. It was a vocalization. And it really was a series of vocalizations over a number of years. I'll never forget, I was probably, I can't remember the exact year. It was 10 or 11 years old, right in there. with my dad, and we were rabbit hunting at night, which is legal in Texas. You go with a little spotlight on your head, and you go with a 410, and you go out, rabbit hunting. And we went to my uncle's property in Newton County, Texas, on the Texas-Louisiana border. And my aunt and uncle took the other side of the property. And the idea was we covered their 83 acres and meet at the back fence line. And, you've covered the property. When we got toward the back fence line, my uncle and aunt had kind of come in behind us, and we heard this thing. And the intensity was unbelievable. It's like nothing I'd ever heard. I mean, I had limited wildlife experiences, but I was always watching wildlife TV. It didn't sound like anything. And I'm like, Dad, what is that? And then he said, I think it's one of Uncle Bill's bulls got hung up in the fence down there, got mad. I said, well, let's go help him out. He goes, no, we're not going to go help him out. And we started, my dad was a veteran. My uncle who was coming in was a Marine in 68, 69 in Nam, and they didn't want anything to do with this. Well, me being a little budding wildlife journalist, like, Dad, that was not a bull. What was it? And he goes, I think it was a black bear, because sometimes black bear, they were pretty much gone from East Texas at the time. They're now coming back, but they would come over from Louisiana. And I kind of bought the black bear thing for a while till I started college and worked with black bears in captivity for 3 years. And they didn't make any vocalization remotely like that. And it was real guttural and really intense. It just always stuck with me. Well, fast forward to 1999. And we're looking at about 15 years from when that initial event happened. I was doing a Bigfoot investigation. Me and my dad with Bobby Hamilton, who was the founder of the Gulf Coast Bigfoot Research Organization. Yep. And we were at a spot near Livingston, Texas. And it was 4:00 in the morning. We're putting up our stuff. We've been listening all night. He had to get to work, and we had to go home 2 hours. And the exact same sound echoed from the thicket. My dad immediately went, oh, my God, that's what we heard at your aunt's house. That's what we heard. We connected as both of us right then. We had both experienced this. And it was the guttural nature. It was, I can't do it justice, but one sound I can kind of do. Yeah. This real guttural, deep thing. And this is where I've always been a fan of the Bigfoot stuff. I mean, I would always be reading Sasquatch the Apes Among Us by John Green, or whatever Bigfoot show would come on TV when we had 3 or 4 networks. But this is what made me want to research right here, because I connected a dot. I was now a wildlife journalist about 6 years in, and had been to Venezuela fishing, and had heard howler monkeys in Venezuela. And for whatever reason, I did the exact I growled back at it. For whatever stupid reason. It growled once. I went, "Rrr," and it stopped and growled once. I growled twice. It growled twice. I growled 3 times, and it went into a frenzy and put a high-pitched scream at the end. Now, between the second and the third, I got to leave out detail. Number 2 creature sounded off behind it, a grunt. There was at least 2 of them in there. And then it retreated when we put the flood beam light in there, because we'd already put everything in a truck, and it ran off. And it sounded like it was a bison running through. It wanted us to know it left, and it was just crashing branches. The howler monkey, when I did the 3rd growl at the howler monkey in Venezuela, it retreated, breaking branches on the way out. And I watched it breaking branches. So I connected whatever I heard was a primate. It did the exact same thing as a howler monkey. It had very howler monkey-esque sounds at some levels, but like one with like Arnold and the Mr. Olympia competition level of steroids, like mega huge, and it left. And I spent $2,000 on night vision the next morning. I was like, I'm in, Yeah. So that was really intriguing. And after that, I kind of discovered the Sierra sounds. Ron Moorhead's Sierra sounds, and some of the sounds we heard were exactly on the Sierra sounds. Not all of them. It wasn't like the chatter.
I was actually going to say that sound you made reminded me of one of the sounds on that. Yep. On that. Yep.
That sound you hear on there is the one that perfectly mimics a little bit of what we heard, but it went into this other level that I didn't hear on the Sierra sounds. It was like a different thing. And so that was what really made me want to pursue this as a journalist, because I believe they were there. I mean, what I've always told people is it only takes one eyewitness for there to be a real thing out there. one true eyewitness, one account to be true. So something going on out there. But when I had that experience and it matched what I heard before, it matched nature. It went into the realm of something that was a known animal, and there was a relatability. So that began my journalistic look into the Sasquatch Bigfoot phenomenon.
Yep. Good deal.
Which that actually opens up into two of my other questions that I have for you. I've heard you speak on feral monkeys and apes, and you had an incident with what you believe was a feral monkey.
I've done a lot of research on like feral monkeys and apes and stuff, and there's a lot. Bigfoot South. I'm going to hawk my new book. I am a capitalist. While what's left to do.
Hey.
Come and get one. In Bigfoot South, I have a whole chapter about feral monkeys and apes, and I found some sign that I think was feral monkeys and apes. But I've had, as a journalist, like not even related at all to the crypto phenomenon, hunters sending me pictures from South Texas of Japanese macaques at their deer blind. There's an established Japanese macaque population near Dilley, Texas, south of San Antonio. And I first heard of these in the 90s, and they are around. Matter of fact, I'm going to be speaking on feral apes and monkeys at the Tennessee Wildman and Crypticon here on August 10th. There'll be a good time to connect with me there. Yeah, I'm going to be there. But another thing that was so interesting to me when it comes to the feral apes and monkey things is, a lot of things get lumped into Bigfoot category. Like if it's furry and not on four legs, it kind of gets.
We lost him. Let me message him. Yeah, I noticed his internet connection was getting a little iffy. There, we got you back.
Sorry, a Bigfoot booted me. He did not want me to let the secrets out. There's a lot of stuff that gets lumped into Bigfoot stuff, and I have taken numerous reports of people thinking they saw baboons in particular. A lot of weird stuff like that. So I do think, especially in Florida, that we need to dig deeper into the feral ape and monkey thing, because there are pretty reliable encounters of chimpanzee and orangutan-like animals. And we know there are at least 3 established populations of rhesus monkeys down there. So if a Japanese macaque, which lives in the high altitude near Mount Fuji in Japan, can survive in South Texas in 100-degree everyday summers, if you had escapes from, there was a place called the Chimp Farm that used to be down in the Everglades, and that rhesus monkey population came from there. So if you can have monkeys escaping, why couldn't you have orangutans? And they did have orangutans. Mm-hmm. They also had lowland gorillas at one of these places, and chimpanzees. So it's something that definitely intrigues me.
Yeah.
I know there's the one photo on the internet that you see of what they call the skunk ape, and it looks like a young male young male orangutan.
Yeah, are you talking about the one that called the Mayaka ape?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that one, as a matter of fact, the woman who sent that, Lauren Coleman, did the original.
Losing him again.
I think Nick may have the answer here.
Oh, darn it, Mick! We told you to watch her.
Nope, he's gone again.
Her and her glow in the dark meatloaf.
But on the Mayaka ape, until we can get Chester back, the lady that reported it had said that she thought she saw an orangutan.
Yeah. I wonder if he's having storms down there.
I don't know. It's Texas. Anything's possible in Texas.
Yeah, I know. It could pop right up.
I've seen some investigations from the Big Thicket area, and I don't want to be there.
Y'all having storms down there, Chester?
Yeah, we're having some weather issues and stuff, and it's been real bad summer for us. So I apologize.
Oh, it sure has. No, you're good. We had We had Craig Woolheater scheduled one time, and he was in his car with his phone showing me the flooding water coming through town.
Well, that was the next option. I was like, maybe I could drive up the road while I'm on it and get away from some of the storm crap. But I heard you talking about the big thicket. That's one of my very favorite areas to do stuff in.
I've listened to several podcasts about the big thicket area, and from what they said, it sounds like Jurassic Park after it gets dark in there.
It ain't quite that bad, but I'll tell you what, the creep factor is way up. I mean, East Texas, I spent a lot of time out west, and East Texas doesn't have any remote places comparable to the West as far as away from people. But some of the most remote places from people in East Texas are in the Big Thicket National Preserve. So you can get away from folks there. And, I filmed an episode of Animal X there with Natalie Schmidt and Daniel Searle back in 2005. And that was a wild time in the woods, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people sort of call East Texas the Big Thicket, but the Big Thicket itself is a very particular ecological region down in Hardin County, parts of Jefferson County, Tyler County, those areas. Mm-hmm. And it's a very biodiverse area with stuff like pitcher plants, which are carnivorous plants. A lot of it's like an ecological crossroads down there. And man, there's some creepy vibes in there. And the famous Ghost Road, Bragg Road, which is near the Lance Roser unit down there. And by the way, Freak 13 played an acoustic set on Bragg Road out there in the Big Thicket one night. So you ask about Freak 13, we did that. In a true story, we got the Ohio howl sound in the middle of our Bigfoot song. I kid you not. I'm like, we're doing it, and I remember Scott, our guitar player, stopped. Is that what I think it is? I said, I'm not saying it's not. And we just kept going. And I'm like, true story. That was like 2004. So yeah, that was fun, man. And I like the fact you guys talked about fun in this, and in your intro, because I think one of the problems is the crypto community is too freaking uptight. Too much tribalism and wars and all this other stuff. And I'm like, guys, at the end of the day, we're playing Scooby-Doo in the woods. Okay.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
And sometimes you pull a mask off and there's a guy. And sometimes you keep pulling and go, oh crap, that's not fake.
That's right. Of course, you don't get to say that because that don't happen in time. So
no, that don't happen too often. But
I'll have to start using my catchphrase, Jinkies.
Yeah, there you go. There you go, man. So,
Nick's got a pretty interesting comment right here.
Okay.
From everything that he's read, he said the Big Thicket Sasquatch are mean and aggressive there. Only been through there in the daylight, never saw any wildlife.
There's a lot of wildlife there. There's a really big feral hog population. There are a pretty good whitetail population, a lot of bird life in there. And there are stories of aggressive encounters in that area. In fact, where the vocalization where me and Dad and Bobby Hamilton were was technically in the Big Thicket region in Polk County, that little just north of it, about 40 minutes, so that basic region. I know of people that have been scared out of tents. I know of a guy that wears a bandana quite often that had sticks thrown at him one night in the woods. And that's happened before. I've never heard anything where it was like Albert Osman, getting taken. But as I said on a show a long time ago, the Bigfoots in California are hippie Joan Baez hippie era Bigfoots. Ours listen to Sabbath and Pantera. So they're just a more amped up Southern Sasquatch,
Right.
But yeah, there are a lot. What's interesting about the thicket is the fact that there's so much different kind of lore about it. And my friend Rob Riggs, the late Rob Riggs, wrote a book called On the Trail of the Wild Man. And me and Rob are definitely on different trajectories on what these things are, but we both believe there was something out there. And he was a journalist from Kuntz. He wrote for the local newspaper for years. And he had someone in the Forest Service openly feeding him information all the time about this stuff. Mm-hmm. That there was a lot of stuff, a lot of reports going on out there. And, I don't think it's like an agency-wide conspiracy. I just think it's implied that if you want your job, keep your mouth shut. I think people, the shame part of it, that keeps people in line. But there's a rich history, and there's a story that actually Bobby Hamilton told me years ago on right by where the Village Creek State Park is, which flows back up toward the Big Thicket. There was supposedly one that came after somebody in a car. I remember hearing that report years ago. Yeah. And but there's a lot of stuff like where it's not just out in the woods. It's like jacking with your tent. You hear a lot of that kind of stuff out there.
Yeah.
I know there was a researcher, and I can't remember his name now. And I'm trying. Garrett, does that sound familiar? Maybe Bob Garrett. But he's supposed to come up on a campsite that had been destroyed in the Big Thicket area. I do remember reading a report about that.
I'll tell you a camp destroyed story that's not in the Big Thicket, but it's in the Sabine River area near me. I have an area that I used to go to quite frequently, and it's pretty close to a city. But it's an area where no one's ever. I've ran into a couple of fishermen literally in 20 years, and that was it. But early in going in there, there's a guy, me and a friend pull up. We're going to go out that evening. There's a man standing on the bridge, and he's hollering. And we went up, and we went to the bridge. We could see that there was a truck down below the bridge with like a boat trailer in the water. And I'm like, man, we've never seen anyone out here. He goes, hey, I'm looking for my son and his buddy. They camped out here last night. I'm like, oh, boy. I'm like, this is a no-go camping spot because this spot isn't in the Big Thicket, but I will give you this. It is the only location I have ever left the woods more than once scared. And I don't leave the woods scared. Now, I'm not a tough guy. It's not about that. I've left the woods because I found a meth lab before. I left the woods because I ran into people I thought were going to cause trouble. That's called common sense. As far as heebie-jeebies, something unknown, I've left the woods here several times. And I'm like, oh, boy. So he said, yeah, they came out camping out here. They thought this would be a good spot to go fishing and camping. So I'm like praying for him, Lord Jesus, help him. And I didn't see him. We decided not to go out there the night because those kids were out there. And I went back the next day and the stuff was gone. Well, I went back the next weekend. The truck was there again. So I just passed by. A month later, I'm back in there. Me and a friend of mine, Todd Jurassic, who's a great researcher. And we went further back than we'd ever went. And I came upon a campsite. Okay. It was their campsite. No, undoubtedly. It was a tent. This is about a month after this guy. It was unzipped. There was a cooler of beer that was there left, fishing gear left, food left. All the tent was ransacked, and there was a 15-inch impression right behind the tent. And it was right in the area where we would hear stuff from that area. It was hard to get to. We kind of made a trail to get there. And they never came back. Teenage boys are not going to leave their beer, their fishing gear, and everything else. And I never saw that truck again. I guarantee you they came into contact with something out there. It's funny. The first time I left that spot was me and a friend of mine named Jim were there, and guy used to be in Freak 13 actually. And we were sitting in this remote spot. And we'd been there like 2 hours, 3 hours, and we hadn't said a word. We're just listening. And I go, hey, Jim. And before I could say anything else, he goes, you think what I'm thinking? Let's get the blank out of here. And I'm like, actually, that is what I was thinking. I said, how long have you been freaked out? Since about 5 minutes in. And I'm like, and so we left. It was just a feeling, And then another time, me and him went back in the same exact spot, and I heard a green branch snap. Pow. And then the branch came sailing. I could hear it hit by my feet. I've heard that happen in there before. So, some creepy stuff. But once again, that goes back to primate behavior. There's stuff that's very similar to what Diane Fossey wrote. And when she first encountered the silverback gorilla, she heard it first. Then she smelled it. It let out a smell. And then she saw it. So there was 3 steps to that, So to me, that was interesting. That's kind of the approach I take in like Bigfoot South and looking at the book and looking at different kind of just interesting reports. And, I'm narrating a series that my friend Paul Fazinski's doing. It's called Wild Man of the Woods. It's on YouTube. Go subscribe to it. It's killer, great documentaries. And we're doing research and stuff. And me and Paul were talking about just interesting reports that seem legitimate, although they might be a little weird. Like, like you believe the person,
Yeah.
And one of the problems I have now is when I started doing research in 1999, there wasn't social media.
Right.
Internet was only a few years old. There wasn't a lot of trading of information. People will come up now and say, yeah, I think I saw a Bigfoot. I found a limb formation. I found a limb twist. I found tracks with during all this stuff. They're trying to convince you because they know the lingo.
Mm-hmm.
And most of my early stuff that I found credible were people saying, I saw something strange. Here's what I saw. I heard something. Or maybe this was a Bigfoot. It was something weird. I mean, I remember my uncle who thought we were nuts for this, who owned the property where they were at. I don't know about no Bigfoots. And my buddy saw a booger down by the Sabine River. I said, well, tell me what this booger looked like. He said he thought the coyotes had been coming and getting his garbage. So he brought his 22 out there and he shined his light over there. And this thing stood up about 6 foot tall on 2 legs and looked at him and ran off down by the river. And so there's stuff like that. Those things are, as a journalist, what make it interesting. I mean, now everybody can back engineer a sighting, engineer something because they know all the stuff. And to be honest, I don't really interview people for this stuff no more. That's not my main. The main thing I do with Bigfoot now is work with the Wild Man in the Woods. I got my book. I talk about it. It's fun. But I work with kids facing special challenges through our Wild Wishes program and bring kids out to have encounters and to have, if they have terminal illness or a parental loss or something like that, and we bring them for adventures. To me, that's a lot more important than I can contribute otherwise. But well, if I'm even going to like take a report seriously, it's got to have, I don't want them giving me everything ever said on the internet about Bigfoot in the first sentence, Do you want to hear my craziest story ever heard? Well,
sure.
Oh boy.
Okay. So this was in a town called Rayburn, not Sam Rayburn, the reservoir, a little town called Rayburn, very close to the Big Thicket. And actually me and Ken Gearhard, pretty famous researcher, went out to this location about 20, maybe 22 years ago. And this lady told me a story of in the early 80s, they lived way out in the woods, and there was a train track about 500 yards, maybe half a mile from the house, somewhere right in there. And she come home one day and the front door was open and the kitchen was ransacked and it smelled really bad. Her thought, because there was a train nearby, was that a hobo came in, got some food, messed the place up, stunk the place up. It happened a couple of times and it scared her. Well, she comes home one day and she had one of those old like Victorian houses that had like the big attics, and they had the pool core where steps came down. And it was one of those attics you could stand up in.
Yeah.
She said she notices in the hallway, which is between the pull down was right by where the kitchen was, and it was pulled down, and she heard rumbling up there. She said, I should have just ran and got the cops or called the cops or something. Right. She walks up and looks, and there's this big hairy thing looking at her like this, and it fell. It fell down on the floor in front of her. She jumps back, and it stands up. So it's about 7 feet tall, covered with hair.
Man.
And she said she realized it's looking over her toward the door, the exit. So she goes, oh my, the door was still open. She just kind of wandered in. So she goes, oh my God, what's going to happen? And she said this thing pushed her against the wall like that and then just ran out the door. Never came back.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And she was very, and she, you know what, she called it a wild man. She said, I'm not sure if it was a Bigfoot because that's a local name, Wild Man. But we called him a wild man. And I said, and she described the ape-looking kind of face, longer hair, a little bit longer hair down in here, and then just a brown, covered body with hair. Bipedal, pushes her against the thing and runs out. And she wasn't trying to get on the internet or anything like that.
Right.
She was just telling a story that happened to her. And you could tell it freaked her out still, Because I remember when I was a kid, I saw that Mysterious Monsters show that Peter Graves did. And they had the almas that came into the researcher's house at the foot of her bed. And I'm like, that used to scare the crap out of me. And I'm like, so I don't care, folks. Let me just let you know if you're listening. I don't care if you're pro kill, no kill, want to be Bigfoot's buddy. If he shows up at the foot of my bed in the middle of the night, I'm shooting him. I'm letting you know that. Anyone that shows up not invited to the Moore household will be sent to the afterlife. I'm just going to let you know that. Yeah, and I'll let them go otherwise. But if you show up in the house, we're not gonna. I draw the line there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'll call you guys up. Hey, I got an exclusive. You know?
Yeah, exactly. All right, Chester, we got a treat for you.
Oh Lord, what you
Since
got?
we're going to play a song made for you.
Okay.
By artificial intelligence. Here we go.
Yeah, down in the Lone Star, searching the dark woods for legend ain't so far. Bigfoot's out there hiding shadow of the pine trees, eyes that pierce the night air, whispering beliefs. Footprints in the dirt leading to the unknown. Beast of whispers, legends, blood, bones, and stone. Through the forest echoes, his dedication grows. A faithful heart, strong no matter where he goes. Haunting for shadows, praising the Lord's name. In the midnight silence, feel the heat of the flame. Searching for a phantom in Texas wild lace. Under God's watch forever, in his grace. Walking through the creek beds, moonlight as his guide. With every step he takes, letting faith collide. Bigfoot's out there somewhere, creeping through the mist. God's love beside him, no fear in his fist. One man's journey through the wilderness inferno. God up high, Bigfoot down low, spirit eternal. Finding truth in shadows, praising what's divine. With each heartbeat, with each step, faith alive. Hunting for shadows, praising the Lord's name. In the midnight silence, feel the heat of the flame. Searching for a phantom in Texas wild lace. Under God's watch forever, in his grace. Shadows, praising the Lord's name. In the midnight silence, feel the heat of the flame. Searching for a phantom in Texas wild lace. Under God's watch forever, in his grace.
Oh, Gary's got the bandana on now.
That's double horns up, double metal horns up.
That was awesome.
Threw the Lord Jesus in there, made it better, and that's scary that AI can write that. By the way,
ain't that scary? Because AI, it scans the internet, so it knows stuff, and then it just puts it all in.
Well, thank you for that. You got to send me a link to that so I can let my dog.
Yep.
Read it.
Yep, I will.
That
was a good one.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you. That was fun.
Yep.
Man.
That was
a good one. Chester, you talked earlier about Livingston.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next question. How do you deal with hoaxes like the article you wrote about the tiger at Livingston Lake?
That's like a growing thing. People have always been hoaxers. They've always had people out there. What I do is I kind of just look at the story and I just start asking questions and poking holes in every story. Right. And number one, if I can't get, like at least two people to corroborate anything, I don't even pursue it. If I, like if it's 2 weeks in, you can't get anyone to talk, probably nothing there. People like to talk now. Yeah. And then the other part is just kind of like looking at what naturally happens. There, for example, there was a tiger loose in Conroe, Texas, and that was an actual story. And it had a leash and stuff on it, and I could tell it was a young cat. And the story said someone went and grabbed it by the leash, and then people, that wasn't real. And that's exactly what I would have done, because it was a young cat, probably weighed 60, 70 pounds, and was probably a sweetheart. I probably would have walked up and grabbed the tiger on the leash too. But I start just knocking holes and stuff. And if it doesn't stay in water, if it doesn't, it's not going to hold up if you start asking questions and there's no answer, there's something, or people. I had someone on something recently, and then the first question I asked them, they totally bailed out on me and ghosted me. And it was a very simple question on a wildlife thing. So I said, that's a BS story, like I said, you can back engineer anything now. I have a podcast called Dark Outdoor. If you guys want to help me, a great way, if you want to listeners, go subscribe to my podcast, Dark Outdoors. It's outdoor true crime, weird experience. I got like a Sierra Sound show on there. And me and Jeff Stewart did a thing about the cattle mutilations that happened earlier in the late last year in Texas that the sheriff's department reported on. Now, they didn't have guarantee. They had no idea what they were putting themselves up to, saying cattle mutilations, because they didn't want to respond to anything. But people can back engineer stuff now because of having so much data. And so my thing is just old journalism, ask a lot of questions. And if it doesn't add up, it doesn't add up, and what happens on these photos, though, they get circulated all over the place. That tiger was also in like Georgia, I think. I mean, it was making the rounds,
Oh yeah. It usually does. It goes from one to the next, and they just change the name of the town.
There's a black leopard one that's from Africa that has been in every city in Texas, I'm convinced, and all sent to me. And it's always someone's brother's cousin's former roommate that got the picture. Look, give me your brother's cousin's former roommate's phone number or email, and they never have it. So I just don't follow those,
Yeah.
Thank you guys. I appreciate that on the podcast.
Yep. We'll leave that up there for a few minutes.
And you guys, I just want to salute you guys because you're fun and you're well researched, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Gary does all the work.
Yep.
Billy does all the work. I do the light work. I want to get back to the Black Panther thing in a minute, but in October 24th of 2022, in the Dallas Observatory, you stated that you didn't believe in Bigfoot, that believing is for religion, and you have accepted the fact that we have a hidden species of primates in North America. Would you like to?
When was I remember saying that, but when was this?
October the 24th, it was 2002. I'm sorry.
I'll say that sounds a lot like a 2002 quote of mine. That was
that's 2002.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it. I think we make the Bigfoot thing too religious. I think that we need to either look at it as like it's a mystery to solve and there's something out there, or we need to get our butts more in gear conserving the habitat that these animals live in.
Oh yeah,
one of the two. And so yeah, that's definitely an actual real quote. I've had a few out there that were not me. And I'm worried about an AI Chester popping up, that making all kind of crazy Bigfoot quotes, because I've heard my voice as an AI voice too. That freaked me out. But
right.
But yeah, I think that in the Bigfoot world, it's such if someone has some kind of encounter, it's such a fantastic thing. It's unique. It's, Einstein once said that the unknown is the most beautiful thing someone can encounter, paraphrasing there. So people's paradigms often like blown away when they have an encounter of some kind. And I think that translates to them wanting to prove it so bad that they start believing anything or saying anything to do it. And I think that's a tragedy. Just let it be what it is. And then, be part of the solving the mystery, maybe. I think that's more positive than trying to go into warfare because you believe they're this and I believe they're that, because at the end of the day, it doesn't freaking matter. Honestly, we don't know yet,
Yeah.
And when we do know, we can start arguing what to do with it. But I think let's get to the point where we know what they are, and then we can settle some of this other stuff. And at the other time, enjoy the fact we're going to go in the woods, look for monsters, have fun, have great discussions, have great memories. And that's what we're trying to do with our kids in our program. Is like, a kid that's been through hell and back a few times. And they're really into Bigfoot, and someone takes the time to take them on an expedition. That means a lot. So that's what we're trying to do, and we've been able to do a lot of that actually. And that's not the main thing. We just do regular wildlife encounters for most of it. We had like 5 Bigfoot requests over the years, and I think we're going to be getting a lot more of those. And by the way, the last one was in the thicket, and a stick flew. I'll say that, and that made that family so stinking happy. And yeah, it was fun. Like I said, Scooby-Doo is what it is.
Yep, exactly.
On the Black Panther thing, I'm gonna coin a phrase from a very educated man that I've listened to speak. It's called a known cryptid. I believe that's a Chester Moore quote right there.
I was like, I need to trademark that because that sounded like something I called it back in the day. A known cryptid, yeah.
Known cryptid. Black Panthers. I've heard stories about Black Panthers from my great grandparents and my grandparents ever since I was a small child here in Virginia.
Yeah, man.
And the game biologists and the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries have always said that there hasn't been a mountain lion in this area for like 180 years, and mountain lions can't be black and all this other stuff. And I know down in Texas, you guys have, especially down in southern Texas, you have some unique animals down there. The jaguars coming back, and there's a jaguarundi.
Yep.
That's down there. Can you expand a little bit on the research you've done on Black Panthers?
Man, I love the Black Panther thing. That's a fun one because it's universal. It's all over the place almost, you know. And I have a YouTube series with my Chester Moore wildlife journalist and investigator YouTube channel, and I have a 7-part series on Black Panthers. And I think there's not one answer to the phenomenon. I think there's many answers to what a Black Panther is. I do believe that what people are seeing are not black mountain lions. There's never been one born in captivity, ever. There's never been one killed and brought to a hunter or taxidermist. And there are thousands of mountain lions killed legally and brought to game check stations every year. Not a credible looking photo on a game camera that was a black mountain lion. There are mountain lions all over the place on game cameras. So I don't think a mountain lion is the number one thing. It's a possibility. You could have darker colored grayish mountain lions at night, or brown. People call Black Panthers. You know, but I've learned something very important. People can't tell scale. They can't tell scale. It's going to hurt a lot of people's feelings, but it's a fact. Out of the hundreds of Black Panther photos that people have sent me to see if it was a Black Panther, about 75% have been easily identifiable as a black house cat. People can't scale. But that's not the only thing. You have like the jaguarundi, which is a cat most people don't know even exists. They get up to 50-something inches long, a long, short cat, but long, dark gray, almost black. Some are dark brown. They are a known animal. What got me going on the trail of this was Don Zeidel, who used to be editor at Texas Fish and Game before I was, asked me if I ever thought someone might think that a jaguarundi could be a Black Panther. And I said, that's a possibility. And then maybe a year later, I saw a jaguarundi 250 miles north of where they're supposed to be. And I used to photograph them at the Texas Zoo in Victoria. And I didn't go Black Panther. I slammed on my brakes with, oh my God, it's a jaguarundi. And most people would not have known what that cat was. It would have been a Black Panther, you know, because they don't know. So right. That's another possibility. Another thing is I have probably had an equal amount of photos people sent me thought they were mountain lions, and they're looking at a bobcat in the photo. Literally. Hundreds of people send me pictures of bobcats. And I'm not knocking people. I love looking at the photos and educate people. Because not all bobcats have a tail that long. Some of them have a tail that long. Maybe even that long. And people think it's a mountain lion. And bobcats get black. They're known to be black. There have been multiple black specimens killed. And then to me, I have one I've called the black longtail. There are these cats, and I think this is what most people are probably seeing. There are cats that are, and I've gotten photos of them, and they're in the video series. And on my blog, thehighercalling.net, thank you for putting that up. There are cats that people are seeing that are very domestic house cat-like, but they are way bigger. They're built like a domestic cat, but they got extra long tails. And I call them a black longtail. And if you look at Australia, it has a mega feral cat problem. They've killed feral cats up to 50-something pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
So are we seeing some kind of an adaptation of these feral cats where they're getting bigger and they're becoming black, better for camouflage, more that kind of stuff? I think that's what a lot of people are seeing. So I call it a black longtail. And the other is the jaguar. I have had a couple of very credible jaguar sightings. Really interesting. I live on the Louisiana border. I'm literally right that direction right there. If I'm 4 miles from Louisiana right there. And I had someone call me one day and said, hey, Chester, I was hunting the Sabine National Wildlife Refuge and I saw a jaguar today. And I'm so used to hearing Black Panther reports. If he saw a Black Panther, he goes, no, Chester. There was this canal and this jaguar swam out of the canal, shook itself. It was a typical orange, yellowish spotted jaguar. And then it walked down and disappeared in the grass. Well, number one, he said something that's very jaguar, water. They're the most aquatic cat in the world. And he mentioned the rosettes. And I'd never had someone ever tell me they saw a jaguar in Southeast Texas, Louisiana. Lots of black panthers, never a jaguar. But he said he saw a jaguar. So a few months, might have been a year later, I did a presentation for Shangri-La Botanical Gardens on the Black Panther mysteries and mystery cats. And I had a lady there tell me she must have been 8 or 10 miles maybe from where this guy had his sighting at. And there had been several goats killed in her area where she lived. And one night she goes out there and the dogs are going crazy. She shines a light out there and sees this cat she says this cat was about big as a, like a big dog, like a really big dog, like maybe 100-pound dog. And it's against the fence. And she said it looked solid black. And she said it turned to move. When it turned, she could see the spots on it. And that's what happens. Those cats aren't solid black. You actually see that. So that there's some credibility there. So I think the Black Panther phenomena is a mix of a lot of different things. I don't think it's just one thing out there. And there's even people say escaped exotics. I do want to kill something real quick. There aren't enough circus trains to have a wreck around the nation to cause every Black Panther phenomenon or Bigfoot. Okay.
Right.
Number one, they did not have jaguars in the circuses. They not good captive animals to work with. Jaguars are not good to work with in captivity. Number two, even if they did or have black leopards, they'd have to have a male and a female escape at the same time, or the gorillas that got loose from the circus trains. Although funny, in Nederland, Colorado, I have my picture next to a dang circus train. They have an old circus train right there. I'm like, I finally found it, But I don't think that all of these came from circus train wrecks. I've heard them everywhere. So no, because my better question is, where are all the tigers? Tigers is what you usually see in circuses for lions. I don't see any tiger sightings everywhere. Right. So I just that one gets on my nerves. I had to kind of like poke that because I had someone tell me, those Bigfoots came from those circus trains and them gorillas got loose out there. I'm like, so they had a male and a female, and they have a really slow reproductive rate. They must have had 20 or 30 pair. Anyway, it's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
How many gorillas can you lose from Virginia to Texas?
Exactly. And apparently on a circus train is the most dangerous place to be because they all get wrecks.
They all wreck, yeah.
That's worse than the old Pinto back in the day.
Exactly. There you go, man.
Another quick question for you, Chester. This is kind of going back in time a little bit too. Do you still have the taxidermy replica of Sasquatch?
I do not. Unfortunately, that thing got pretty damaged in a hurricane.
Oh, man.
And then we tried to preserve it, and then another one hit, and it got leaked on. It started molding and stuff on it. So I had to just chunk it. A lot of great pictures. We named it Boggy. My dad made that thing. I had the idea of getting a gorilla form from a taxidermist, like a museum form. We found one, and then Dad did. I got, I think, 3 Chewbacca suits worth of fur. My dad did a great. God bless him. I miss him so much. He loved that thing, and it got to be on National Geographic and Animal Planet, and a bunch of my early Southern crypto conferences. My friend Craig Woolheater's Texas Bigfoot conferences. So, Boggy got around, but Boggy's in the landfill somewhere. So.
Another good question I'd like to ask is how do you begin an investigation? Where do you start at?
So how do I begin one, or how would I suggest someone?
How do you begin one?
How do I begin? Okay. So I'm just going to go wildlife in general because it's kind of all the same. A lot of times a piece of news will come across, or I'll hear a rumor of something, like hear a rumor or something. So what I will do is I'll take down and I'll take a bunch of notes, and I'll go down and go, okay, this happened allegedly here. Who do I know in that part of the area right there that knows about, that might be in that circle? What game and fish department official might be one that would have a piece of information? Is there another local journalist in the area that might be onto something? And I just start making my contacts like that, right? And then I start trying to find multiple witnesses or people who can corroborate something. I'll give you a prime example. Is there's this crazy story of a wild sheep from Asia that had been cloned. Okay. And I heard about this stinking thing a year and a half before the story broke. and never could find enough to corroborate at first because it was being held like real quiet to the vest by the feds. But it was a real thing. But I contacted officials in that state, Montana, where it's allegedly was brought to, and all that. And then once the court case broke, I was able to go make my other contacts there, you know. But it was staying on the story. Sometimes just staying on it. Like if you have a gut feeling about it, I'm going to stay on it. But I start making all my normal contact swipes, you know, looking around. Mm-hmm. And then here's a little trick that I can do sometimes. Let's say that there is a legitimate report of someone that thinks they saw a jaguar in an area. Okay. I'll go on social media and I'll just say, hey, you know, I'm going to be out in Coleman County or wherever. Anyone ever seen any unusual wildlife there? Mm-hmm. And then, people, I don't give them what I'm looking for. And then sometimes I'll get, hey man, there was just this rancher just saw a jaguar. Here's a game cam photo, stuff like that, you know? And then once I get to the point where I have people to interview, I like to interview someone twice if it's a really important story. I like to hit them once and feel them out, then hit them back again after I can digest it for a while. And just try to get down to where there's something to publish and then go find the corroborating piece of information to go together. You know, it's all about linking stuff up and finding a pattern. It's about finding a pattern. But like I said, I usually kind of draw a circle around it and go, who do I know here? Who do I know in this department, and then reach out to all of them separately, you know? Mm-hmm. And, you know, a lot of times there's a bear roadkill story up in East Texas. I'm doing this on like right now. Like I got it an hour or two before I came on the show. And then I'm about to reach out to someone I know in Texas Parks and Wildlife. And I'm doing that process right now. And it's also managing good, faithful contacts. Yeah. And not betraying the people that you get contacts from. Yep. I've got information from 2 people on a wildlife story that I've had for like a while that it wouldn't get them in legal trouble at all, but it would get them heat from people. Mm-hmm. And they gave me information that was very helpful. And I'm not going to put them out there. It would help my story. I could have like wild stuff out there, but they didn't want the info, this particular info out of who said it. So I'm not going to say it. It's just, you got to, you know, unless it's something that's like destroying someone's life or a terror plot, I'm going to keep my mouth shut because you got to protect your sources, you know? Yeah,
exactly. That's probably the best answer I've ever heard on that.
Really?
That was really cool. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. It's just I went to school for journalism, but I didn't learn that. It was just, honestly, Gary, it was how I want to be treated. Mm-hmm. It was how I would like to be treated when I'm dealing with someone. And also what kind of, I'm very blessed that I get to do this for a living. And so I try to have good information, and long-term thing is like providing good information, you know? And, and I really have, I've got some great, it's funny as a wildlife guy, I'm almost like Mulder and Scully without Scully to help me out, just solo. My wife's like Scully sometimes. She's a good researcher too. But maybe Faith will be my Scully out there, right?
There you go.
And because I've got some stuff that's so wild, I'll be just in a general conversation. People go, "What did you just say? Cloning or what? Never mind. Probably want to get into it, you know." But you know, and I respect people who want to contribute, and they're just honest with me. Hey, I can't let this get out. I'm in this business. I would get heat from other people, but this is what's really going on. I respect that. So I just keep my sources what they are and who they are, and, you know, and try to have integrity about it.
Yep.
Next question I've got for you, brother, is what are your plans for the future for your conservation programs?
Man, that's a great question. I am leaving for Yellowstone here in just a very short couple of days. For a Higher County Wildlife Expedition, working with some families in Wyoming, some kids that have been through some great challenges. We're taking them to do some photography, filming some documentaries. I'm working a lot with my buddy Paul, who does Wild Man of the Woods Bigfoot on YouTube, and we're doing some wildlife conservation documentaries. Mm-hmm. We won awards this year for our fly fishing documentary, Flying Upstream. Last year for my Dark Outdoors documentary we did, and we also won one for Higher County Wildlife, The Elevation. So a lot more media work like that done, produced by us, you know, like, and never getting past the point where I'm going to go for the one kid. I had someone ask me one time about our wildlife program. We have a small zoological facility. We work with kids like I said, terminal illness. We've even worked with girls that have been through sex trafficking, me and my wife, and they give them animal encounters and stuff. And I had someone ask me, Chester, one of these people that were like bragging how many rich guys they knew, literally telling me all these billionaires they allegedly knew. And the journalist went, BS. Anyway, how many kids would it be worth it for you to drive out to San Antonio and do something? I said, 1. He goes, what do you mean 1? I said, pretty simple, numero uno. I said, 1. He goes, well, I know that's the good bit. That's the good, like, spiritual answer. But I'm a man of practicality. And, I said, look, if you want to give 100 kids I can go help, great. I said, but I'm going to usurp all of answers you could ever give. He goes, how are you going to do that? I said, Jesus Christ said he would leave the 99 for the 1. Who am I to think I'm better than that? And so I never want to get it past that we are going to have an impact on the one person. I want to, because, that one little kid out there may be ready to do this. And we all have the power to do this, that we can invest time in people's lives who are going through struggles and take them in the woods and have a great time. I think that's an important thing. I'm not anybody special or anything, but I know my calling, and is to help these kids, bring the love of Christ to them. And that's what we do. And I don't ever want it to grow past the point where I can sit there and spend time with the one,
Yeah.
Excellent. Really, the last thing that I've got for you here, because we're getting close on time, is
you don't have a Bigfoot rap for me or anything, do you?
No.
No.
Thank you. I love the metal song. That was awesome.
Can you expand on some of your conservation efforts, like the Gulf Great White Shark?
Oh, yeah, I love this. So I got a blog called gulfgreatwhites.com. You can subscribe to that. And it's I've been really into great white sharks my whole life. I was the kid who saw it. Matter of fact, my first tattoo was a great white shark. You can barely see it right here, but there it is. After I did a cage dive in California in the Farallon Islands back in 2002. And I love great white sharks. I was the weird kid who saw Jaws and wanted to get in the water. And I've been writing about their comeback in the Gulf of Mexico for 20 years before people were really talking about it. Because a friend of mine had an encounter and dug up some research, was told I was crazy. And all of a sudden, they started putting satellite transmitters in great whites in the Atlantic. And guess who comes in the Gulf in the winter? Great whites. Mm-hmm. And then this beautiful, awesome 14-footer showed up at South Padre Island, Texas, 100 yards from the beach, February 26th. And I've got to work on that. So what we're trying to do there is raise awareness of white sharks in the Gulf and shark conservation, and through gulfgreatwhites.com. And we have our Summer of the Shark program we've been doing. We've been getting kids to go out and help us give shark conservation books and gift packages to kids on the beaches and stuff. And we've been taking kids into the shark cage at the Texas State Aquarium. You can get a shark cage encounter and snorkel with the sharks there. We got kids doing that on August the 18th coming up. We're taking a group of kids. And that's all letting kids know they can be a voice for conservation by using their social media to talk about these things. On the gulfgreatwhites.com blog, highercolumn.net, I'll publish kids' pictures and articles sometimes. A lot of photos they've taken. And so we're trying to let them have a place they can be a voice. And it's fun stuff. And who doesn't like sharks,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure.
Well, Billy, that's all I've got. Chester, I really appreciate you.
Yep. It was great, Chester. Great information. Everybody enjoyed it. And, who knows? We might have to get you on again one day, but I'll send you that song.
Please, my daughter's going to laugh her head off. She's going to think that's hilarious. I love it. It's awesome. Thank you for thinking of me like that. I just want to say this. If you're listening out there and you're struggling, a lot of us are, and you think you're less than, you think maybe, life had passed you by. It hasn't. Better days can still come. Always believe in it and never give up.
That's right.
That's
Good words. All right, Chester, can you hang on until after we shut out the show?
Sure,
okay.
Absolutely, man.
All right. So I want to say thank you to everybody. It was in the chat room, everybody that was listening live. We appreciate all you guys, and then all those that's going to be listening to the archive show. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we will see you next Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.
Peace out.